Do you know someone who complains about life but waits for things to improve without ever taking action? That's one of the 5 types of poor that Machiavelli identified. It's not about money, it's about mindset. Most people have 2 of these 5 types, and if you don't identify yours, you'll stay stuck forever. I'll show you each one, and at the end, you'll know what's limiting you and how to break free. The first type is the most common, and you've probably been it at least once this week. He acts without thinking, feels something and reacts, gets irritated and spends, gets anxious and buys, gets bored and looks for anything to fill the void for a few minutes. It's not that he's stupid, it's that he gave up control, and when you hand over control of your decisions to what you're feeling in that moment, you're no longer in charge of your life. Have you ever bought something you didn't need just because you were feeling bad? That feeling that buying will make you feel better, and it works for 20 minutes. Then guilt arrives, regret hits, but the money's gone, and the worst part is the pattern repeats because the relief is immediate. The consequence takes time to show up. Machiavelli studied this. He noticed that most people live hostage to their own feelings. They don't decide, they react. And whoever reacts is always losing. Because the world doesn't wait for you to be ready. The world doesn't care what you're feeling. The world rewards those who act with strategy, not emotion. Every time you act on impulse, you're telling yourself you don't trust your own ability to handle discomfort. You're saying you need something external to feel good. And when you need something external, you become its slave. Slave to relief, slave to the next purchase, slave to the next distraction. And the worst part is you don't even notice, because it seems natural. Everyone does it. Everyone buys to feel better, everyone spends when they're sad, but just because everyone does it doesn't mean it works. It just means everyone's trapped in the same snare. Want to know how to get out? Stop treating your emotions as commands. They're signals, not orders. When you feel like buying something, stop. Wait. Ask yourself, do I need this? Or am I just trying to relieve what I'm feeling? The answer will show you who's in control, but there's a type that doesn't even need impulse to sabotage itself. He does it with conviction, thinking he's being noble. The second type believes wanting money is wrong, and this belief keeps him poor with a clean conscience. He grew up hearing that money doesn't bring happiness, that rich people are greedy, that true wealth is in simple things, and he believed it. Not because he tested it and found it true, but because someone said it was. And now he carries this belief like it's a virtue, as if being poor is proof he's a good person. What he doesn't realize is he's sabotaging himself. When an opportunity appears, he hesitates. When someone offers more money, he feels guilty. When he thinks about charging what he's worth, a voice inside tells him that's greed, so he accepts less, works more for less, and justifies it, saying it's not about money, that he does it because he loves what he does, but the bills don't add up at the end of the month, and he keeps saying everything's fine. Machiavelli saw this up close. He studied men who had every condition to conquer power, but refused to do what was necessary because they thought it was immoral. And what happened to them? They were destroyed by men who had no such scruples. Because the world doesn't reward good intentions. The world rewards those who act. You need to understand something. Money isn't good or bad. Money is a tool, and a tool in the hands of a good person does good things. A tool in the hands of a bad person does bad things. But rejecting the tool because it can be misused, that's not virtue. That's fear disguised as morality. When you reject money, who are you helping? You think you're being humble, but you're actually becoming powerless. You can't help your family. You can't help anyone. You can only survive. And surviving isn't living. Surviving is just not dying yet. The truth nobody wants to hear is this: goodness without power protects no one. You can have the best intentions in the world, but if you have no resources, you can't materialize those intentions. You're stuck in the field of ideas. And ideas without action are just pretty thoughts that change nothing. So when you say you don't care about money, what you're really saying is, you don't care about having power to change your reality. And Machiavelli would tell you that's not virtue. That's surrender. You're handing over control of your life to whoever had the courage to seek power. And then you complain, the world is unfair. The world isn't unfair. The world is indifferent. And those with power shape the world. Those without just watch. The third type carries no guilt. He simply waits, and keeps waiting. While others act, this type waits for the perfect moment. And the perfect moment never comes. He has plans, many plans. He knows exactly what needs to be done. He's researched everything, watched videos, read articles, talked to people who've done it. But when it's time to start, there's always something. It's not the right moment. Conditions aren't ideal. He needs more information, more preparation, more certainty. So he postpones, and postpones, and postpones, and life passes by. But he's not being careful. He's afraid. Afraid of failing, afraid of looking incompetent, afraid of discovering he's not as capable as he imagines. So he hides behind planning, because planning is safe. Planning doesn't hurt. Planning doesn't expose. But planning also doesn't build anything. Machiavelli called this serving fortune. Fortune is the name he gave to chaos, to chance, to everything beyond your control. And he said there are two types of men: the man who acts and forces fortune to bow, and the man who waits and lets fortune decide for him. The first shapes his own destiny. The second lives at the mercy of what happens. And you know what's the saddest part of all this? This type thinks he's being smart. He looks at those who act and thinks, these guys are rash, reckless, they'll fail. And while he thinks this, these guys are making mistakes, learning, adjusting, and moving forward. And he stays in the same place, watching, analyzing, waiting. The truth is, you'll never be ready. Never. There's no perfect moment. There's no ideal condition. What exists is the moment when you decide to act even without all the answers, because it's in action that you discover what really works. It's in mistakes that you learn what to avoid. It's in adjusting that you build competence. But if you never start, you never discover anything. Imperfect action always beats perfect inaction. Always. Because action generates results. Even if the result is bad, you have something to work with. You have feedback. You have experience. But inaction generates nothing, just more planning, more analysis, more waiting. And while you wait, the world doesn't stop. Opportunities appear and disappear. People advance. Circumstances change. And when you finally decide you're ready, the window has closed. And you wonder, why does life never give me a chance? Life did. You just didn't see it because you were too busy waiting for the perfect signal. The next type doesn't even realize he's trapped because he's too comfortable to feel the prison. This is the fourth type, and it's very dangerous because he doesn't feel like he's losing. He's fine. He has a stable job, a predictable routine, some small joys that make the days bearable. He's not rich, but he's not in need either. And that's enough. At least that's what he tells himself. Because if he admits he wants more, he'll have to do something about it. And doing something about it takes work. So he prefers to stay where he is, comfortable, safe, lukewarm. But here's the problem with comfort. It doesn't warn you when it's killing you. Pain warns, crisis warns, despair warns, but comfort is silent. It puts you to sleep slowly, and when you wake up, you realize years have passed and you're still in the same place, doing the same things, having the same conversations, living the same week in infinite repetition. Machiavelli saw this as the slowest death, because it's a death where you keep breathing. You didn't fail dramatically. You didn't lose everything. You simply stopped growing. And when you stop growing, you start rotting, not all at once, little by little, so slowly you don't even notice. When was the last time you did something that scared you? Something that took you out of your comfort zone? Something that gave you that pit in your stomach of not knowing if it'll work? If you can't remember, you're stagnant. And stagnation is just another word for death in slow motion. Being fine isn't enough. Fine isn't a goal. Fine is a pause, a breath between movements. But if you turn the pause into permanence, you stop living. You just exist. And existing isn't the same as being alive. The greatest danger isn't chaos, it's false peace. Because chaos forces you to react. False peace convinces you there's nothing to worry about. So you relax, you settle, you accept. And when something finally breaks that peace, you realize you've become too weak to handle it. Because muscles that aren't used atrophy, and courage that isn't exercised disappears. Want to know if you're stuck in this type? Look at your life. Are you where you wanted to be 5 years ago? The answer will show you if you're building something or just maintaining, if you're growing or just surviving. And if the answer bothers you, comfort is the hardest prison to escape, because you have to give it up voluntarily. Nobody will kick you out. You have to leave by your own choice. The fifth and final type is the one who simply thinks he knows everything. They have opinions about everything, knowledge about everything. But they do nothing. He's consumed hundreds of hours of content, watched all the videos, read all the books that say how to do it. He knows exactly what needs to be done. He can explain step by step. He can debate, can correct, can criticize those doing it wrong. But if you ask what he's done, the answer is silence. Because he's done nothing. He just knows. Consuming information gives you the sensation of progress. Every time you finish a video, it feels like you've moved forward. Every time you learn something new, it feels like you're closer. But you're not. You're just more informed. And information without action is just entertainment. It transforms nothing. It builds nothing. It just takes up space in your head. Machiavelli saw this repeatedly. Men who read all the treatises on strategy, but in the hour of battle didn't know what to do. Men who could explain complex theories about power, but had no courage to exercise any. He called these men learned fools, because erudition without execution is just vanity disguised as wisdom. And the worst part is this type feels superior. He looks at those trying and failing and thinks, I know more than these guys, and technically he's right, he does know more. But knowing is worth nothing if you don't do. Because the guy who's making mistakes is truly learning. He's gaining experience. He's discovering what books don't teach. And meanwhile, the arrogant one keeps accumulating information he'll never use. Knowledge isn't power. Applied knowledge is power. Knowing how to build a business doesn't make you an entrepreneur. Knowing how to get in shape doesn't get you in shape. Knowing how to have better relationships doesn't improve your relationships. What changes everything is doing. It's putting knowledge in motion, it's testing, it's adjusting, it's learning by doing. But this type never does because he's afraid. Afraid of discovering his knowledge isn't enough. Afraid of discovering theory is one thing and practice is completely different. So he protects himself, stays in the field of ideas, stays in debate, stays in criticism, because then he's never tested. He never has to prove anything. You're not what you know, you're what you do, and if all you do is consume more information without ever applying it, you're using learning as escape. You're replacing action with study. And that's not growth, it's sophisticated procrastination. How many courses have you started and never finished? How many have you finished and never applied? The answer will show you what your type is. Now you've seen the 5 types. But the real question isn't which one you recognize, it's which one dominates you. Most people have at least 2 of these types, and as long as you don't name yours, it keeps controlling you. You've acted on impulse and regretted it later. You've rejected an opportunity because you felt you didn't deserve it. You've waited for the right moment that never came. You've chosen comfort over growth. You've learned something new and done nothing with it. If you recognized at least 2 of these patterns, you're seeing the trap. All these types have something in common. They gave up control. The emotional poor gave it to feelings. The moralist poor gave it to guilt. The reactive poor gave it to fear of acting. The complacent poor gave it to comfort. The arrogant poor gave it to ego. And when you give up control, you stop being the author of your life. You become a character. And characters don't decide, characters only react. Machiavelli spent his life studying power, and he discovered something most never understand. Power isn't about dominating others. Power is about not being dominated. Not being dominated by your emotions. Not being dominated by your limiting beliefs. Not being dominated by fear. Not being dominated by comfort. Not being dominated by your own vanity. When you reclaim that control, everything changes. Not because the world changed, but because you stopped being a slave. Wealth isn't about how much money you have. Wealth is about not being servant to anything. You can have millions and still be poor if your feelings control you. You can have little and be rich if you govern yourself, because true poverty is depending on something external to feel complete. And true wealth is having sovereignty over who you are. So now you choose which of these types is dominating you. Not all. 1. The one that most prevents you from moving forward, and start observing. Every time it appears, you stop, breathe, and ask, who's deciding now? Is it me or is it the pattern? Because the pattern only has power while you don't see it. The moment you name it, you reclaim choice. Fortune dominates those who surrender to it, but those who refuse to surrender, fortune respects. Not because you're stronger, but because you decided you won't live at its mercy anymore. And that decision, that single decision to stop surrendering, changes everything. Not all at once, but every time you choose to govern yourself instead of reacting, you build something no one can take from you. You build internal authority. And when you have internal authority, you don't need to prove anything anymore. You don't need external validation anymore. You don't need to wait for permission anymore. You simply act, adjust, learn, build. And poverty, the one that truly matters, ceases to exist. Because you no longer serve anything, you govern. Now you've seen the 5 types that keep people trapped. But there's a principle Machiavelli taught that goes beyond this. Click the video on screen now. You'll discover what separates those who merely understand from those who truly conquer.